Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Prue Klein and I'm the Marketing Coordinator here at Wine Communicators of Australia. Today, we'll be hearing from Georgia Rasmussen, who has run her own consultancy firm for the past 12 years, working with businesses Australia-wide in food, wine and lifestyle categories. In this webinar, Georgia will discuss the fundamentals of list growth and run through a health check of conversion tactics, both at the cellar door and away from the cellar door. She'll also share some of the key drivers of conversion and sales growth through emails, outbound, and social media channels. We've allowed plenty of time for any questions you may have to be answered at the end of the presentation. However, feel free to send them through to me as they come to mind. You can do this via the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. As usual, these webinars will be recorded and a link to the recording sent to you should you wish to watch the content again at a later time. It is now my pleasure to hand over to you, Georgia, for your presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Prue, and welcome everybody. And I just want to do a quick thank you for tuning in today, and my apologies for last week. I had a cold, which is the first one I've had in 18 months. And, you know, I think we've all been wrapped up in cotton wool. So it was a shock to the system and a lot of coughing. So thank you for tuning in today. All right, so this is the Power Hour. We've got quite a bit to get through. And as usual, I tend to include a lot of slides because I know, given that this is recorded, you have a chance to then go back and have a look at it at another date. So hopefully you can access that. And if we don't get a lot of time to go through each slide in detail, you can do it in your own time. So as Prue said, today I'm really focusing on conversion rate optimization, or CRO. You know, the direct-to-consumer space is, in my books, really about list growth. So letting customers in and then converting those customers to a sale and an ongoing relationship, with one of the, I guess, indirect values being the brand opportunity that comes with all of that. So I guess, you know, as far as CRO goes, really it's going back to basics. As I said, marketing is simple. It means getting people into your store, whether that be your cellar door or your website or your social media channels. And once they're there, getting them to either sign up to your list or to buy your product. And the reason that this is such a great area for you to focus on, I mean, a lot of you will have launched some of these streams, some of these channels within D2C, but it's really about optimizing some of those, I guess, some of those areas that you're already operating in. Because if you can nudge your numbers, your conversion rate in the cellar door, for example, to list or to club, or if you can nudge your email response rate up just a little bit by improving some of the tactical execution, then it's a really cost-effective way to generate more profit back into your business. So it is a little bit like the 1% rule. I mean, it's interesting, when I put these presentations together, I think, gosh, you know, it's a complex channel for a lot of wineries who are really, truly operating in the omni-channel space. So they've got the cellar door, they've got your website, you've got your social media channels working, you've also got export, you've also got traditional distribution. So there's a lot going on. So it's complex. But if you can come back to the D2C space and look at, you know, moving, I guess, some of the streams that you're operating in, moving some of those conversion rates forward, then the cumulative effect will be significant. So if any of you tuned into my Wine Australia webinar series last, I think that was September, October, I can't believe that's now 7 or 8 months ago, I was referring strongly to this D2C roadmap, because for me, the D2C channel is very much a business within a business. It's quite complex. There's a lot of areas to, you know, to be considering. So I've tried to sort of put it into this roadmap, and where this customer, you know, the optimization around conversions sits is in the strategy, which is heavily linked to the customer journey. So they're really the two areas that I'm going to focus on today. You might also remember that in the Wine Australia webinars, for those of you that attended, I was really strong on some of the budgeting. So the strategy, the budgets, and understanding the channel potential for you, because it's obviously a little bit different for each winery, but it is highly predictable depending on what assets you have to activate. I won't spend a lot of time on this today, but please find a way to get some of this predictive modeling in place at your winery. It's going to help you from a strategy point of view, because if you can understand the size of the opportunity, then you'll be able to invest and resource appropriately to drive, results for the business. I will whiz through right at the end of this pack my toolkit. I've had pretty good uptake of that, and it gives you these tools. But more on that at the end, towards the end. But this all forms a part of the discipline around D2C. And if you don't have this in place, it's very hard to get visibility on the conversion rates and the analytics and the measurement side that we'll be talking tactically about how to drive up today. So just a little bit of a diagrammatic, and I think this shows the complexity of what a lot of you are dealing with. But really, this is the customer funnel for the D2C channel for wineries. I just need to move that away from my screen a little bit. So if you look at opening the funnel at the top, where are you getting your customers from? There are lots of options. For those of you that have the cellar door, obviously that's the richest place to try and drive, the customer or activate the customer relationship. But there's also your website, there's Google, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, events, partnerships, email, and even outbound telemarketing. Now, I'm not suggesting that you activate all of those. And I think, when I'm sitting back here thinking about strategy for D2C for wineries, I think you're almost better choosing a select number of those and doing them really, really well, rather than trying to be a master of all, jack of all trades and master of none. I think you're better off selecting a few of these. And obviously, if there are wineries out there that don't have a cellar door, you're going to lean to the right in terms of, some of the digital opportunities. But, there are a lot of opportunities to get customers in the door. Then the middle part here is around, well, what tactics are we using to drive people either into our list or to drive the sale? And as I said, the indirect value is the brand piece. But, really, if there are two things that you want to be focusing on, it's obviously growing the list, converting to the sale, which becomes your goal. And if I flick back, to this, to the slide, a couple of slides back where we were looking at the modeling, that's where your modeling comes into play. Deciding on which one of these channels you're going to drive your customer numbers through, and then looking at the numbers and understanding the size of the opportunity for you. So if we kick off with the cellar door, and some of you may have heard me talk before, and these numbers, they don't change. So I'm sorry if it sounds a bit repetitive, but I think it's good to understand clearly the baseline. The cellar door, obviously the number one thing for you guys is to drive your visitation. I think that's been well covered. And I'm interested, particularly of those of you in, Margaret River and South Australia. I keep hearing about these large numbers of regional visitation. I know Margaret River certainly had that towards the end of last year. And, there's a big push, even here in Sydney, we're hearing a lot about people going down to South Australia because, there's basically no COVID there. So I'm interested in the impact of that. And obviously, you guys will be tracking your numbers. So keep in touch with that. But the conversion to club, as I've said many times before, it sits roughly between 2 and 5%. These numbers haven't changed in 20 years. They're the same in the US as they are here in Australia. And I guess your goal is to really push towards that 5% conversion. Likewise, conversion to list is generally around 5 to 10%. But I think this needs to be higher, and it offers an incremental opportunity for wineries to really start driving up this data collection side of things. If you look at retail outside of wine, they are pushing, numbers north of 30% conversion. So I think that's something that wineries really need to consider. I'll come back to these 2 points in the red, but if we look at using incentives, do use incentives in terms of competitions or whatever it might be in the cellar door. So it's a conversation opener, join our list today and receive, or sign up for our club and go in the draw to win, those sorts of things. And then the other part down the bottom here is that technology is starting to enable this process. So do educate yourself on what options are out there. I think 2 quick wins, if you like. for understanding where there's some low-hanging fruit still in these conversion numbers at the cellar door is firstly sales training. Some regions are really on top of that and are adopting this idea of getting somebody in to do some hardcore sales training with their staff. And if I can just share something from my experience in Beringer and Napa Valley, I was there over 20 years ago building their direct-to-consumer for the trade brands, and we undertook an entire process of reviewing every cellar door. There were probably about 10 or 15, but we got a sales company in from San Francisco to come in and reassess what our main metrics, what our main goals were, what we were trying to achieve, and restructured the entire salary and incentive structure for those wineries. And the impact was instant. So I'm a big advocate of bringing in some sales training, but also looking at how you're compensating your sales staff. It's a selling opportunity for you. Now, that sounds hardcore. The delivery of it does not need to be hardcore. So I think that is an opportunity for a lot of wineries. And then the other one is looking at this idea of customer journey mapping. Customer journey mapping is really spelling out the entire customer journey, from when they might think about they wanting to visit you right through to loyalty. And that funnel has been around for a long time. It's got more complex with all the omni-channel and digital touch points, etc. It has got more complex, but I would encourage you at the cellar door to do a customer journey map for the cellar door. So to understand how people are finding you, where they're looking, and how they're feeling about making their decision, whether they're, to visit you in the Barossa Valley or Margaret River or Tasmania, wherever it may be. But I do think that's a really great process to go through. Here's an example of a customer journey map that I really like. It is actually from an agency in Europe somewhere, but what I really like about it, if you just look down the bottom, it goes right through to business goals, KPIs, who's responsible, what part of the business, and the technology system. So it's like it has an above the line customer part, but it also has a below the line business administration part. And these maps are quite complicated. It's not something that you're going to sit down and do in an hour or two, but I would really encourage people to spend time on that, because it allows you to see where the pain points are and where the opportunities are for you to improve, either just the visitation or the conversion piece as well. Two cellar doors that I love, who I think are doing this really well, Hamilton's. Again, Mary joined me in the Wine Australia series, but they have a very intense D2C program focus, and they do a fabulous job of, this customer journey right from arrival through to how they run their tastings, etc. Shaw and Smith on the right-hand side also do a beautiful job. They have their seated tastings, and they have a really fabulous sort of conversion mentality with that product. So I think it's hard if you're just bringing people into the cellar door without a really structured sort of approach. I think take a look at some of those pointers. So then we move on to the website and looking at conversion growth in the website landscape. So again, my pointers here are ensure that images, video content, blog content, testimonials. I know this is easier said than done, but I really do think, again, as a separate area, if you've nailed the cellar door, then move on to your website and make sure that experience is optimized through content and also through the customer experience. Obviously, it needs to be supported by a clear and frictionless pathway to purchase. So that needs to be well-oiled and simple. I think consumers they have such high expectations of, purchasing through these D2C channels these days, that you really need to keep it quick and simple. And I know from my own personal experience, and think of your own, but the Apple Pay and the Shop Pay, if I can go onto a website, find a product, click on the Shop Pay, pre-populates all of my data, bang, it's done I've purchased something within three clicks. I was going to say 3 kicks, 3 clicks, but that does give me a kick. It's quick, it's effective, it's frictionless. I get all of the updates on the shopping app, in terms of where it is in the process. So I would encourage you to really drill down into making sure that that pathway to purchase is frictionless and quick and easy, and that consumers have lots of options. Again, in this space, develop your customer journey map. As I've said before, what are the pain points? How can you overcome them? And then obviously in terms of driving traffic, have a look at these, your SEO and SEM strategies. And the SEO one I think is really interesting because a lot of that's driven by content and keywords, etc. And I think it's really hard. I think it's really hard for staff to be experts across all of these different areas. They're different skill sets, and it's just a lot. It's intense. There's a lot of stuff that you need to be on top of. So I would encourage you to find specialists in those areas, educate yourself. There's a lot of content online that you can utilize, I guess, to upskill yourself. But it may be for a short period of time that you bring in an agency to help you with some of these things as well. A couple of website fast facts that I'm not going to spend too much time here, but what's interesting to me, I've actually always said the average website conversion for wineries is about 1.5%. But I think that's because a lot of the websites aren't optimized in terms of this path to purchase from homepage, if you're coming in via Google or AdWords or whatever, and you're landing on the website, that path to purchase has not been perfected. So I think it's just interesting to keep these numbers in mind. Average website conversion, 2.35%, but the best website conversion last year had a conversion rate of 11%. So there's room to move. But again, you need to be measuring this, having a look at your Google Analytics and putting some good sort of foundational analytic structures in place so you know where you sit amongst these averages. I'm going to let you read through these in your own time when you have a look at the post recording. One other point that I will pull out is the landing pages. Look at that number. In 2020, increasing your landing pages from 10 to 15 increases leads, names by 55%. The source of that is HubSpot. HubSpot is actually a great website for lots of tips and tricks. Just, if you're wanting to educate yourself on some of these areas, take a look there. But I think landing pages is something that's underutilized, and I'll talk a bit more about that when we talk about emails later on. Okay, so another way obviously to grow your list is through social media. And I know a lot of you are active on social media. And for me, it's interesting. And there's a stat that I've got later on that shows that email is at least 40 times more effective converting to sale. So, definitely social media has a role to play in the customer journey, but whether it is the conversion platform is probably less likely, but it obviously is part of the funnel in terms of getting people to your website to transact there. But obviously you need to be looking at your social media content to engage your audience. And the engagement really is key because the algorithm bumps posts for, bumps up the posts for accounts where there is interaction. So it's just things like, the chat, the DM messages. So make sure that you're responding and that you've got interactive and shareable content on there. I thought an interesting one here is to reuse and repost your top performing content. And this reminds me of a method that we used at Seller Masters many, many years ago, where we would reuse top performing offers. Now in our day, it wasn't, well, it is now digital, of course, but back in the day when I was working there, it was direct mail, which I have to say direct mail and direct marketing is exactly the same discipline, just in different channels. But reusing and reposting can be really, really effective. And sometimes on the second and third time of a reuse of an offer or a post, you'll get an even better response rate. So try that and see what happens. Post consistently. The rough rule of thumb is at least once every 2 days. Work with influencers and use landing pages. I can't stress that enough. So I've got a couple of examples here of some social media offers, and these are from Hamilton Wines. And you can see that these are, they're ads, they're sponsored ads. And Mary has put together an offer here, which is join the club. Now, I think that's a really bold attempt because there's more barriers, obviously, to joining a club because of the cost involved and the commitment. But test it, read the result, try it. I mean, you can buy some space, obviously, on your social media channels pretty cheaply to test these offers. So there's a wine club acquisition offer on the left here, and on the right is a free freight email offer with a strong PS to go in the draw to win. What I like about this is obviously an email offer, not a social offer, but what I like about the offer here, and of course that offer can translate back to your social channels as well, is that it's short. The copy is really punchy. You know, if you think about it from a customer point of view, what do I get and what do I have to do to get it? It needs to be simple. It needs to be simple, and it needs to be direct marketing copy. I think a lot of wineries have room to optimize in that space. You know, I know I've been doing this for so long now, but I know a lot of wineries are really hesitant to, you know, really put themselves in a selling position. You know, they see themselves more as a branding vehicle, and that's something that's okay, but that's something that you have to decide and to be very clear on from a objectives and a strategy point of view. For me, I think consumers, they want to buy direct. They're really driving this channel now more than ever. And I think you owe it to yourselves to really, you know, I guess, find an expert, you know, it might again be an agency who's an expert in direct copy to help you formulate some of these offers. Maybe just do it for 3, 4 or 5 months until you've got some really good templates and a handle on, you know, how to write these things, but it will boost your conversion rate, and, you know, you will see a strong difference. So that was a little bit on social media. Look, the other areas where you can grow your list are obviously partnership, or one other area is partnerships. And I've got an offer here that Naked Wines have put into the Freedom email list. And I think this is really interesting for wineries because, you know, I again have said this many times in the past, I think it's really hard for wineries to compete in the direct space if you're thinking about critical mass, because there's 3,500 wineries all trying to do the same thing from a mechanics point of view, and it's hard to get cut through. A lot of you don't have the resources, a lot of you don't have the money that you can spend on buying ad space, and I think, you know, yeah, I mean, I'm sort of sidetracking there, but this one interests me because the idea here is that they are, you know, piggybacking on the Freedom list. So Naked Wines have gone out and said, for everybody that purchases from Freedom or spends over a certain amount of money, you get a $100 gift voucher to spend back. And I would encourage you guys, you know, to have a look and think about your partnerships. Who has a large list out there that you can develop some sort of co-promotion with? And I think there's a lot of opportunity to do this. And obviously Cellar Masters was built on this sort of model back in the day. Cellar Masters are relinquishing a lot of those relationships. I mean, the market has moved a little bit, but they are also relinquishing those relationships. And Naked Wines have hopped right onto that in terms of these list partnerships. So I think it's something that you could brainstorm within your business and see if there are others out there that have a decent list that you can piggyback on. Now, I would say make sure the list is big. You know, a list of 1,000 is tiny. You know, you're starting to understand the response rates of 1.5%, 2. And I can tell you acquisition is even lower, 0.08%, 0.1%. So you need scale in the list that you're partnering with. So I wouldn't even bother, wouldn't even get out of bed for anything under, you know, 30 or 40,000. So, and I haven't got too much time, I haven't got enough time to go into great detail, but look at list partnerships as an opportunity to grow your business. Can I also just say, just because I always like to get a chance to say this, I've said I think it's really hard for small wineries, you know, individual wineries to latch onto some of these bigger commercial opportunities. And I'm still really passionate about regions getting together and co-oping a whole lot of wineries and taking that proposition to market, because I think then you've got critical mass and you can start to compete with things like Naked Wines or Wine Selectors or whatever it might be. I think as an individual winery, it's really hard. Customers want choice and flexibility, and a single brand doesn't offer that. It's not to say you don't do your single brand opportunity, but I think there's an opportunity for regions to be looking more commercially at how they go direct to consumer, because it gives you more firepower. And I can tell you, going back again into my days in the US, working for Beringer, we activated all the single brand wine clubs, which worked beautifully. They had a lot of traffic, and some of the brands were actually only profitable because of the D2C channel. This is back in 2001, aging myself. But we then said, well, look, you know what, there's such a great portfolio of wines here. They had the Australian wines, the Italian wines, and there were, let's say, maybe 10 Californian wines. So we developed a wine proposition called World Wine Estates that was actually sold out the cellar door along with the single brand clubs, because the single brand club person only, we found from a lifetime value point of view, stayed on board for maybe 3 to 3.5 years. Well, what then? We'd rather them purchase from our portfolio of wines rather than, somebody else's. And, they were able to coexist really nicely together. We were also able to use the World Wine Estates proposition to partner with American Express, American Airlines. So, because they're unlikely to engage necessarily in this way with just a single brand, because there's not enough choice for the customer. Anyway, I've slightly digressed, but partnerships I think is interesting. And I think it's interesting for regions to think about how they might work together to, challenge some of the other big retailers out there, or e-tailers out there in this space. Landing pages. So landing pages are a no-brainer. And if you're not using them now with your emails or some of your social channels, you need to be. They're pretty simple. They don't need to take a lot of time to set up, but they really do hone and target the offer and streamline the pathway to purchase. So can I just get you to I won't say anything more here, but just make a mental note that if I'm active in emails and I'm emailing my customer base, or I'm doing any competitions or partner work, I need to feed people back into a landing page, because it will drive up your conversion rate. Cancelled members, not a really sexy area, and I call it cancelled, but maybe past is a softer word. But look, it's, in the direct marketing world, and in any world, it's well known that if you can reactivate a past customer, it's much cheaper than going out and finding a new customer from a cost of acquisition point of view. And, this comes down to the RFM analysis, your recency, frequency, monetary analysis, which again, just make a note of that. I would encourage people to be looking at that from an analytics point of view, because you then can target your communications to those groups. And you will have a group, all of you will have a group in your database that did purchase once upon a time, but haven't purchased for 18 months. There's just so much here, but lists need to be cleaned and scrubbed. And you need to know what quadrant your customers are sitting in, because personalization and targeting around group and message is absolutely key if you're going to drive up your conversion rates, which then, of course, leads to more loyal customers because you're speaking to them in a more personal way. So do think about those. I thought this was an interesting one. It's unwine related, but I haven't been to the Sydney Opera House for a long time. And, they've offered me a summer ticks, a $21 summer ticket. So we've missed seeing you walk through our doors, and from midday every day until the end of March. So obviously I received this a little time back, but saved it because I thought it was a good example. We're excited to offer $21 tickets across our summertime lineup. So the interesting thing here is that if you are able to target this group out of your database, offer them something really great to come back on board. Particularly if they were, past members that spent a lot, and then you've almost got to go in and look at your past members and say, okay, well, were they high active past members, or were they low active or medium active? But it is, if you can reactivate a past member, they will do a lot for you financially. They're also really strong in terms of member get member campaigns. So that is another area that you can grow your list, or grow your, certainly, conversion rate through sale. QR codes I wanted to mention. I haven't seen a lot of manifestation of this from a sales point of view yet, but I think this is interesting given that we're all QR coding like crazy to get in anywhere. It has really moved the needle in terms of, usage of these as a, I guess a broad market thing. And I think it's something that you could look at in your cellar doors potentially. I have seen it used on tasting cards, for people to QR code and bang, there's the tasting note. I think that's quite a nice application. But there's no reason why, you couldn't come into the cellar door, for example, and have a little promotional thing set up on a stand that has a QR code, sign up today, put in your data, go in the draw to win. Now, make it quick and easy for people. So there's a number of ways that you can activate a QR code. I like this one on the sand shoe here. This is I guess the same as having it on your wine bottle, but that on Adidas has put it on the tongue of the shoe, so that people can see more information about Adidas and whatever their storytelling is for the moment. The example on the left here is simply scan for offers. Maybe you're interested in putting that in your cellar door. Scan for the latest wine club offer. But look, trial it, test it. They're easy to set up, easy, affordable, trackable. That's what I've got here. And I'm not going to go through this today. And again, this is courtesy of HubSpot again. But you can literally go online and search up how to generate a QR code. Perhaps that's something that you can try. You can also apply them to your websites too. I'm not quite sure how that works. I think if you've got a frictionless pathway to purchase, you probably don't need it. But I do think in the cellar door or any of these touch points around tastings, events, etc., consider the QR code. Take people back to the page and have a really great offer. The interesting thing about them is you don't necessarily need to advertise the offer. And I know discounts are sensitive, but maybe it's a value add. All of that comes back to your maths and your cost of acquisition. So QR codes, I think, is something to consider in terms of driving up conversion rates. And then I think I'm just going to scoot forward here. I know there's two more. Okay, so in terms of growing your list, member get member is also something that I think you should look at. And I was reading a statistic the other day, and I alluded to this earlier, but your top left-hand quadrant, so your top customers, are really the people to target with a member get member offer. So they're the people, they're your advocates, they're your loyal advocates. You wouldn't blast out a member get member offer to your entire database, because you've got a whole lot of people on there presumably that haven't purchased, depending on how clean your list is and how recently you've scrubbed it. But people who haven't purchased for quite some time, they are not the people that are going to be advocating. Your job with them is to get them re-engaged with your brand before you ask them to go and recommend you to somebody else. But give it a try. This is a really simple template here. Hi, John, get a 20% off all products for each referral, and your friends get 20% off all products too. And forward this link, share it online, get a little bit of viral activity happening there as well. But I would encourage you to test a member get member offer, but to your best customers, to your top left-hand quadrant. Tastings and sponsorship programs are obviously another area where you can drive your list. I think you guys are all over this. The events are a little more straightforward than some of the more technical direct marketing stuff. But my thing about tastings and sponsorships is if you are doing a sort of a sponsorship program, or people are asking you for wine supply, negotiate the pouring rights and access to the event list. I think that's just should be a standard part of the negotiation. And then with the offsite tastings, look for high traffic opportunities where, there's not hundreds of other wineries, because I think people just get fatigued with handing over their data. But if you can find an event where there's, maybe 2 or 3 wineries, and I don't really have I don't have a list of what those events might be. I think there's probably more cut through there. And again, I've said here, consider at these events, a QR code with a promotion, and see whether that is an easier way to collect data. Okay, time check. Okay, we're doing pretty well, actually. So I'm just going to go back. Prue did mention that I was going to talk about outbound telemarketing and a couple of these other streams within the direct-to-consumer channel. But I've decided instead just to focus on email conversion. Now, that's not to say that telemarketing isn't critical, but it's just how much can you cram in 45 minutes. So, in my book, email is still the king of communication with customer lists. And I've got a statistic. I'm actually just going to scoot forward to it a few slides ahead here. But email beats social by 40 times for customer acquisition. It is still the strongest digital tool for retention. And, even with the explosion of technology and social and all of these other mechanisms, marketers keep coming back to email. So I think we know that. I think it gives you more options to talk to the consumer in a meaningful way. And I just think we're slightly more engaged with email as well. So I want to spend my time before we get into some Q&A on email. So my broad thoughts on this before I go through this as a checklist are that most wineries, not all, but most, are still just blasting their entire list with an offer. It's not overly well planned in terms of a communication plan that's been developed 6 to 12 months in advance. It's not well analysed in terms of, deeply looking at, what the key metrics are that are coming through. So I think a lot of wineries can be doing better. And it's one of those areas that if we go back to the very beginning and we talked about the funnel and all the different things, in the omni-channel sort of model that are available to you, this is one I'd be focusing on and trying to become better at. I think if you can nudge this along, there's significant financial benefit and conversion benefit that can be gained from making some of these tweaks. So firstly, and I will go through these in a little bit of detail, but be personal. Use personal language. Use words like you, your, me, our. So use a personal language and use your customer's name. No one should be sending an email out without a name in the body of the email, but please, if you can, put a name in the subject line as well, because it's just it stands out. It stands out in the inbox, and it just makes it more personal. The other thing I read recently was that emojis are having a significant effect in the subject line. So if you can get a personalized name in there, a great offer, and an emoji, I think you'll find that your open rates will increase. And they're pretty simple tactical things that you can do to try and optimize your conversion rates. Secondly, tell a story. You do need to keep it brief, but storytelling is important in terms of crafting. If you go back to the days of traditional direct mail and you look at some of the letters that were sent out, there's full-on stories going on in there. And I always remember our copywriter, John Hancock, who was just a master at this. He was out of an ad agency in the US, and I can't remember which agency he ended up with here, but he was at Amex before he came across to Seller Masters, and he was a master storyteller and had a real, it's a craft. It's a real craft around this direct, the craft of writing a direct email. So tell a story, but keep it brief. Use a strong call to action and a button or images aren't so great, actually. I should take that out. So a button or just a link, purchase here. And remembering all the way through this, this brief storytelling with a strong call to action, that the consumer is simply thinking, what do I get and what do I have to do to get it? And I'm actually going to just take you back. Sorry to scoot back, but I just wanted to reinforce that again by looking at one of Mary's emails. So if you look at this one on the right, the free freight email offer, and you think to yourself, what do I get and what do I have to do to get it? I can glance at that email and go, well, it's all about the black sheep sampler. Amazing offer, $99. Oh, you'll pay for the freights, free, shop now. I mean, that's it. And I mean, there's not so much a story in there, but there might have been, she might have warmed up the list with a couple of stories leading in. I think that's the other thing to consider, is that wineries tend to just go out with an offer, a release offer. But there is this idea that you can warm up the list heading towards it, lead them into it the week before. Next week we're releasing, stay tuned or something. So then by the time they get the email, they kind of know they've been waiting for it. And again, that will increase conversion rate a little bit too. But my point on this slide was, what do I get? What do I have to do to get it? Keep it simple with a really strong call to action. The other part here is the PS. PS has forever been a really strong tactical element of a direct marketing communication or an email, any sort of communication directly to a consumer. And this one is PS, buy today, and we'll put you in the drawer to double your order. So it's just another thing that gets me over the line. So, and I think you've just got to stop being afraid that it's going to it'd be an issue for the brand. A lot of people say, oh, but that's not really us. And I go, well, that's okay if you've decided that this is a branding channel, but it's not okay if you're trying to drive volume through this channel, because someone else will get in there and the consumer will purchase from something that's easier for them to act on. Right, I'm going to go back down to our email list. Okay. Tell a story, keep it brief, use a strong call to action, make your emails mobile friendly. And this goes without saying. I think if anyone out there has a website that's not mobile friendly, well, that's one of the first things you need to be doing, because we're all, on our phones and we're flicking and we're catching up on our emails, and we might open something that's of interest to us. And if it's not, if it doesn't resonate perfectly on the mobile, then if it's not mobile friendly, people, they'll just give up on you without taking it any further. Link your images in your emails. And I think about yourself when you're opening an email. I know I go and I instinctively go to click on the image. And if it doesn't take me anywhere, I kind of keep clicking it, and then I lose interest, because you've got a short period of time by which to capture someone's attention. So link your images, work on your subject line, to increase your open rates. And there's psychology at play here. And this again has been well known in the direct marketing space for many years, but there is, that we used to call them envelope openers because we were sending direct mail, but there is psychology at play. So you need to put something enticing. Oh, what's that? Create some curiosity or something that's, drives people to open your email. Be specific, personalize, target your subject line. So Georgia, there's a case of Shiraz waiting for you. Oh, okay, well, click. I have to have a look and see what that is, because your first job is to get people to open that email. So as much work needs to go into that subject line. And again, I think this comes down to A, understanding it as a discipline, and B, planning. Plan these in advance so that you can have 6 months worth of subject lines in the pipeline. It's no good when you're under the pump and you've got a million things going on. And I know so many of you are multitaskers. I was speaking to somebody yesterday over in Margaret River who said, oh no, look, I do the wine club, but I also ordered the loo paper. And I'm thinking, they were doing a lot of administrative work for the winery and the wine club, which was pretty significant. And also, dealing with things in the winery too. But I digress. It was just a funny conversation, sorry. But yeah, be specific, personalized target. And then, of course, target based on customer attributes and actions, so past purchase behavior. And I think some of you are pretty good at doing that. You know, I've seen a lot of good emails around, you know, you've purchased this vintage last year or this product before, but it needs to go a little bit deeper than that. You know, I think, you know, there's a lot of different ways you can slice and dice the list. You know, the recency, frequency, monetary is one of those. That's really for you to know who you're speaking to, but there's obviously a number of other things that you can target based on. Build momentum, I touched on that earlier. So this idea of leading up to your sales email rather than just, you know, hitting the list in the face with a new release. Warm them up. It does take more work, I understand that. But I think if you're really serious about optimizing the conversion rate, these are some of the things that you need to start thinking about. And then the last one here is test and analyze and keep testing and analyzing. And, you know, that again needs to become a discipline. I think one of the barriers to that I know in wineries is if the list is small, you're dealing with small numbers, and sometimes they're not statistically valid. But, you know, it is a discipline, even if you're doing a 50-50 split. You know, it is something I would really encourage, because it's the only way that you're going to know what your control offers are, what your best offers are, and, you know, to continue trying to beat that control. So, okay, so some more optimization tips. What about frequency? So I'm often asked, you know, what is the right frequency? And, you know, all I can say is that one mass email a month is not enough. It's just not enough. You're making the assumption that, you know, out of 30 or 35 days, your customer is ready to purchase on that one day. You know, I would be keeping your brand saliency up by emailing at least twice a month. And if it was my business, I'd be going every month. It might not be a sales email every week is what I meant to say. It might not be a sales email every week, but I would have all of that in my pipeline. I'd have some automated email strings going based on new customers coming in, sending out a welcome email with a click through to a special offer for them. You know, I think the days of one email a month, you know, it's not enough. And your competitors, who are retailers and these other big online e-tailers, are doing more. You know, they're educating themselves in the space, and I think you need to go along for the ride. What offer? We've talked a little bit about that, and I'll just let you look at that. I think you're well across all of these, but look, there's occasion-based, consumption-based, free freight, exclusive content, anniversary bonuses, maybe birthdays if you're collecting that data, and people love a birthday, you know, a discount or voucher or something. So there's a number of different offer types that you can put together. But the key thing here is to personalize it, get the copy right and personalize it. This email I showed in the Wine Australia webinar series last year, and I still really like it. This is obviously a Darren Berg one, but I like it because it was targeted to me. I've cut that off because I couldn't fit it on the page, but it was targeted to me, and it has all the bells, all the direct bells and whistles. And my guess is that they've had an agency help them with this. But if you look at the detail here, so the email was received at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday, and evenings tend to be a pretty good time. That's another question I get a lot. What's the best time for me to send my emails? And generally earlier in the week is better. And there are two windows: in the morning when people are kind of getting their day sorted, or in the evening when they're in front of a laptop and they've got a little bit more time to digest. But anyway, this email was received 8 p.m. on a Wednesday, and it has this great deal from Chester, which is to buy a certain amount of wine. I've just got to read it here. So spend $375 on wine and buy a Bose sound dock or speaker for $150, where the value is $300. So basically saving $150. So rather than discounting the wine, he's value added. So he's protected the position of his pricing. But he's linked it back to, he also did this great link, click here to listen to Black Dog, Led Zeppelin Echoes, etc. Very Chester. So he's linked it back, so it's relevant, it's got good content, it's got engagement, so I can click on that Spotify playlist, and he's offering me a half price Bose speaker. He's also then put the order builder in here and said, okay, well, if you spend $750, I'll give you the speaker for free. So just a nice traditional order builder. Spend more, get more. And then this email linked into a landing page, which gave a really honed look at the offer. And then just another tip on landing pages. I've read recently, if you take all the navigation off, you've got to take all the distraction off these landing pages. They're literally a simple offer page with a click to purchase that will drive up your conversion rate. So Chester's offer here lands on this landing page and gives you a little bit more detail on the offer, and then taken to the wine shop. So email, learn more, landing page, purchase. So it's a really nice example of a streamlined offer that has all the bells and whistles on it. This one I quite like too, from Shaw & Smith. Shaw & Smith have always taken a really lovely, subtle approach, but they do it well. And this one offered a single product with different sizes and different packaging, and the packaging was by a certain artist, so they've allowed you to read more about that artist. So they've got really nice content engagement that's in line with the product and the brand. They don't have a landing page here, which I think they possibly could have, but they've certainly got plenty of action buttons to order now. And then they're also cross-selling to their wine club and some general news articles. So two pretty nice examples of emails there. Okay, I've touched on these 2 points. What copy? Well, it's not winery copy, it's direct marketing copy. And again, I would encourage you guys to possibly do a course. You know, ADMA, I've mentioned to a number of you before, ADMA offers some great courses, or engage an agency who does this stuff and run with them with a retainer for 3 or 4 months, you know, as a part of an education program, but also an activation program. Direct marketing copy is not winery copy. It's very different. It has a real skill, and it will drive your conversion optimization. And then we've touched on a little bit of timing, and I've said here again, look, 7 to 10 in the evening or in the morning. I mean, I've basically got the whole day there, but I would go earlier in the morning. But really you need to test, you know, run a few tests yourself and see what the difference is in open rates and click-through rates. And again, Tuesdays earlier in the week tend to be better for opens and clicks. I've got some copywriting tips here, which I'm not going to go through because I think we've talked about that a lot, but you can refer back to this in the recording. And you know, just use it as a checklist. Ask yourself, you know, have I covered off on some of these points? Test a PS, try a PS. You know, maybe there's a secondary offer sitting in the PS. Maybe it's your wine club. Maybe you've got a really great new release offer, and then you've got a PS. Don't forget, you know, you can join our wine club, join today and receive. But test and play around with it. And then I've got some email fast facts here, which I sort of touched on before, I think. Here's the point about emojis. So 50% of brands using emoji in their email subject line has a higher open rate. And Experian, if you don't know Experian, they're a US company. They're a data analytics company. We did a bit of work with them with our direct proposition and supermarkets, trying to understand sort of customer behavior a little bit better. This is way back in the day. But they just have a truckload of really valuable data. So I think that's a really good point to take on board. Automation solutions are becoming more prevalent in digital marketing. So automation is obviously triggered emails. So for example, if you get someone onto your website and they sign up and they're a new customer, that should automatically trigger a welcome email. And I've seen some fabulous welcome emails in the wine category too. You know, I've seen video welcomes. I mean, imagine that. So I sign up, you know, put in my details, And then, later on that day, there's an email from my winery that I've signed up to, and there's a welcome video from the winemaker or from the cellar door manager. I think that's a really nice touch. It could be a welcome video with an offer. I mean, how powerful is that? Video is powerful. So there's lots of, creative things that you can be doing to try and drive up some of these conversion rates. I'm always interested in response curves too. And for those of you that I'm emailing, you know that it's pretty quick. An email is basically a 24 or 48 hour cycle, if you like. But here is a stat. So almost 19% of all email campaigns are opened in the first hour after sending them. And this is just interesting to me because very quickly, so quickly. Back in the days of direct mail, it was much slower. That response curve was a lot longer, and direct mail typically will A, the post takes longer, B, it tends to hang around the house, sit on a bench for a while, maybe before you act on it. But these emails, they come and go within, 24, 48 hours. And again here, personalization increases the likelihood that customers will purchase. Well, we know that. And customers are not very forgiving for brands whose emails display poorly. So test carefully in the dark mode, run those tests and make sure that they look schmicko. Okay, so look, that is actually, how am I going for time, Prue? That's actually the end of the prezzo. I did want to just go through my toolkit. One of my things, I've been doing this for a long time post the corporate career. And last year, obviously with another surge in consumer demand for direct to consumer, I wanted to put something together that I could get out to wineries pretty cost effectively. Most of my work has been one-on-one with wineries, which I still love doing. But I also wanted to try and develop something that was cost effective that I could get out to lots of wineries. So I developed a toolkit. It includes some of these dynamic membership models where you can just literally plug and play, and there's instructions of what you need to put in and how to use it. To work out, what is the size of your opportunity? And it is such a critical point of this game, because if you know the size of your opportunity, it's a much easier argument to either yourself, if you are management, or to management in terms of investment. And, I so often see people in wineries trying to be jacks of all trades, master of none, but this is a defined skill set. And I think it's going to become easier in the next decade to find that skill set. As the next generation comes through, because if you think about everyone doing a commerce degree at the moment, it's all going to be, so much of it's going to be direct and digital. But this idea around understanding the size of your opportunity is so important. So this, the modeling side of things, and so much of this is predictive using variables that are pretty standard. So the workbook includes a model that you can use pretty simply to work out the size of your opportunity over time. It also has some dynamic campaign analysis templates. It's another area that I think is a little bit gappy for wineries in terms of understanding the key metrics and being really disciplined around their reporting. So I've included a couple of templates there. There are, from a general business management point of view, there's 17 checklists, printable checklists, something you can just pin up next to your computer around fulfillment, technology, strategy, customer experience, customer journey maps, etc. So there's some good checklists in there. And there's also some general resource stuff around, governance, so URLs and a glossary of terms and some basic calculations, which feeds back into the analytics side of things. So if you're interested in that, email me. I can flick one out to you digitally. It does take me a couple of days to get on top of that. So I've just got to allocate a passcode to all of the Excel workbooks. But if you're interested, just send me an email or call me. I think my phone number is tucked away down the bottom. But I love talking everything D2C. It's still a passion after all these years, and there's, now's the time. So give it a red hot go. And Prue, I can see you've hopped back on. So, but I can't hear you.
It's okay. I was just checking, Georgia. Would you like me to go into question time now, or did you have a couple more things to wrap it up?
No, I think that's it. It's a little bit of a power hour, isn't it, Prue? There's a lot of stuff. And I never feel like I cover everything, and I'm sort of galloping because I want to get the information out there.
Well, there's certainly some questions for you, so I will get straight into those. So the first one is from Pam, and she's asking, why does removing page navigation increase conversion, please?
Look, I think the idea there is that there's less distraction. So, if you think about if you've got navigation sitting up the top or down the side, it should be up the top because that's sort of the standard best practice. But if you've got other stuff up there, people are more likely to click out, but you want them to focus on that landing page, which has your offer or what it is that you're wanting them to focus on. So it's as simple as that, less distraction.
Great, thank you. Next one is regarding the performance benchmarks RE website conversion. And the question is this based on total visits to the site? And the second part of that question is, are you able to share the details of the website that achieved an 11% conversion rate?
I can answer the first one and I can't answer the second one because I've pulled those stats off I think it was HubSpot, one of the websites that was driving this. But certainly from a conversion rate, it's unique visitors. So if you go into your Google Analytics, that's typically the conversion. And look, it is interesting. I think it doesn't actually matter. It could be eyeballs, it could be unique visitors. For you, it doesn't matter as long as it's consistent, as long as you're always measuring conversion against that consistent one. But the general industry standard is that it's unique visitors. Because I might go into a website and flip out and then come back and then move over to another thing and then come back to the website, and I'll be registered 3 times. So it needs to be a unique visit. And then, look, the other one with 11%, my guess would be, and I can't share the website, but my guess is that it's a pure e-commerce, a pure e-commerce play where that is their sole channel. And I think, it's really interesting because as I started, when we started, I said it's difficult for wineries, and it's difficult particularly for smaller wineries, because it's complex. Your task is complex because you are operating really across this omni-channel marketing. You've got the seller door, you've got the digital channels, you've got social media, you've got maybe export and retail. So it's complicated, and it's complicated when you're resource poor with not a lot of necessarily a lot of money at your disposal, which is why I was then trying to hone you back to concentrate and become experts in a couple of those areas. So that's a woolly answer for the second part, but I can't tell you what the website was.
Thanks, Georgia. The next question is in regards to social media channels, etc. From someone whose company policy is not to advertise pricing within these channels. So they're asking, what if I don't want to show pricing? Furthermore, free freight is expected these days. So how do I get around this?
Yeah, I think that's challenging. How do you get around that? I mean, look, I guess, and I'm presuming that your website is not considered one of your social channels. I'm presuming, and whoever that question was, they might want to just
specifically, they specifically did refer to their social media channels.
Yeah, well, look, I guess that would be, for me, it would be landing pages. So it would be taking it one arm removed. I mean, you've got to think from a customer's point of view. And I don't know if that's your decision or your company ethos decision. But the customers, they need to know that detail, right? I mean, they need to know if they want to buy a product, how much is it? So when are you going to give them that information? And I guess the idea about putting that up front is, what do I get? What do I have to do to get it? The idea there is that, people are time poor and they're just not going to spend that much time clicking and digging. But if that's not something that you're willing to yield on, I guess the idea would be to have some sort of engaging content based where you did ask them to take one more click, and to get into a landing page where you can present that information.
Right.
It's a little bit hard to give an answer on that one because, look, different wineries have different strategies, and you're right. I mean, some of the icon brands in Napa, where they've got maybe 1,000 cases of Screaming Eagle or whatever, well, you never know the price. That's totally secret squirrel business. You just know it's very expensive, but it's never advertised. So I appreciate for some wineries, it's just not, it's not as commercial. But but I guess you need to have it somewhere. Happy to talk to you offline.
Great. Thank you. I'll keep going through. There's a few more to come, Georgia. Is there any advice on what are some of the key attributes we should segment customers by to effectively target them for promotional offers within our email campaigns? Great question.
Well, look, I mean, there are a whole lot backed up in this presentation. Attributes can be things like past purchase history. That's always a good one. Particularly if it is a product that's sought after. So they can be product-based, they can be personal attributes. When did I last visit the winery? If you're tracking by date winery visits, I mean, how nice if someone can say, oh, look, we love seeing you early in April. So it could be based on their last visit. It could be based on birthdays. It could be based on personal data. I think that's the low-hanging fruit for wineries. Now, if you're becoming more sophisticated in this space, people are actually, going back to people based on what they have looked at on the website. Oh, we noticed you were looking at, XYZ product on our website. Here's some more information. That is a personal attribute, but obviously, I think that's probably the next layer. So past purchase behaviour, personal information, or things that they've done, how they've interacted with you.
Great, thank you. There's a few more on that whole emails EDM area. So next question's around making emails personalised, and if you have any recommendations for software apart from MailChimp, which can produce or use a customer name in the email from the contact list.
Look, most should be able to do that, and that's a woolly answer again as well. But look, I think I'll take that one on notice. I can certainly try and come up with a short list. But MailChimp does, and there are, for those wineries that are getting more sophisticated, there's a number of packages out of the US that are, have been in this game for so long that do the personalization really well, but it takes you outside of the wine space. I have to check. I should know whether With Wine, I'm pretty sure With Wine would, but I just would need to check that. So I think I might take that on notice and do a follow-up. Can I do that, Prue?
Absolutely. That's fine. I can send you details. Next question is, how do you feel about using images only in EDMs with text on the image rather than text and images separately?
Yeah, look, I think my gut feeling there would be no. I think, the text is better than images in terms of loading and speed and all of those things. So no, I'd be the other way around. I'd be text over images.
Okay, great. Is there?
And I think we can structure. The other part to that is that you can structure a proper direct copy. We just spent all that time talking about copy. I think you can put all the figures in there.
Excellent. Next question, is there a risk that emailing people weekly actually turns people off, and i.e. they end up unsubscribing? And on a personal level, is getting people to sign up the best way I have found to do so, to reassure them that we will not pester them? So I guess they use it as a bit of a marketing tool to get them to sign up, is that they're not going to get really, bombarded with emails from this business every week.
Yeah, look, I think that's interesting. I mean, the only way to really truly know for your brand is to test a frequency and look at your attrition rate. Yeah. I would say, look at the noise that's coming through our email boxes. Look, what are the ones that you get annoyed at? I think we get annoyed when people are emailing us every day. We just go, enough, that's junk. I think once a week, if you've got something that's worth saying, i.e. a really great offer, or you've got an event, or you've got, some really engaging content around the industry or whatever it might be, I think once a week is fine. That is my view. I would stop using that as a selling tool, I think, because, and I think this is where I come back to the sales training and the seller door. I think that has come from people feeling like people will, quit if they get an email a week. I think it's negative. I wouldn't be saying that. It's a negative sell, if you see what I mean. It's a bit of a negative option thing. So I'd stop using that line and I'd start testing, because the only way you'll know is looking at your attrition numbers and tracking them, which you should be doing weekly. In terms of membership, setting up a membership report in your system and being able to just funnel that through to your dashboard. I think once a week is fine.
Yeah, great. Thank you. The next question is sort of around that recruitment of people for your database again. And this person's asked, how do you overcome seller door staff who are adverse to asking for customers' email addresses, contact details? Trialed iPads for customers to input, but it just hasn't worked for us.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, read the first point of that. I shared that story when I was working in Napa Valley, and we totally rejigged the entire sales process within the seller door, and it became mandatory. It was a part of your job. It was part of the job spec, and it took a little while to obviously weave that in, and there might have been some staff turnover. Can't remember now, it was so long ago, but it just became a part of their job. And I think if people are utterly unwilling to do that, I don't know, what can I say there? Because I do think it should be a part of a tasting room sort of remit, if you like. Now, the other part to that is to get some training, because it might be that they're just uncomfortable with it, or they don't have the right script. So do some role playing, get some sales training into your seller door, and do some role playing to help people. Now, I think like with selling, with everything, it'd be the same as converting to sale to wine within the seller door. There'll be some people that are naturally better at it than others. I think selling is a skill, right? Yeah. But I think if people are downright refusing to do it, well, then that's a management issue, probably. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Another question, why do landing pages work? We don't use one.
So again, look, it's sort of a simple answer. Landing pages work because it allows you to put the offer out there, and it allows people to focus their, focus their attention on that specific piece of information. If you think about websites, they're noisy. So same answer, yeah.
Couple more and then we'll wrap up, Georgia. So there's questions regarding wine club and how do you marry an established wine club which has an older demographic with a new younger demographic and channels such as social media and DTC email campaigns, when I guess that older demographic has been very used to receiving the traditional newsletter offers and mail outs, and I guess bringing them up with the times.
Mm. Yeah, look, that's tricky, isn't it? It is tricky. And I guess I would say, well done, because you were obviously doing this quite some time ago, so you're reasonably established. I don't have to think about that one. There is this idea of being able to sort of transition people across to different media, and certainly Seller Masters had to do that because direct mail died. It died, and then everything sort of became digital. Is it
educating your existing customers?
Look, it is a little bit of education, but if I look back at that, it's a little bit like a Venn diagram. You've got some people, you'll have three groups: some that will just refuse to transact with you that way, some that are transacting only with you that way, and then a group in the middle that's probably doing a little bit of both. But I guess my short answer there is that there's a transition time. It's not a clean cut. It's something that you'd have to really work at, and you're going to have to be doing multiple sort of streams of communication to that list until eventually it will turn over and move into a digital space. Probably not the answer that you want to hear, because it means that you're still operating in some of the older ways. You can certainly educate them and talk to them. And I don't know if you're emailing that old part of the list, but you can certainly encourage them to move across and highlight it. Yes, Prue, advertise it. let them know that they're missing out on things if they're not on social channels or whatever. But look, depending on how old they are, some of those people just are not going to go on social media. So
very true.
It's not going to be perfect.
Very true. And the last question for today is from Jane, and she's asked, she said she's seen emails that have like a 5-minute video embedded into them, but the file didn't seem to be huge. And she just wondered from a technical perspective, how does that work?
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. And I presume it's a compressed file of some sort, or that that there'll be someone on this call who's a tech person going, oh, look, she's speaking rubbish there. But I'm just wondering if it's sitting behind the email and it's actually linked back to the website or something. I don't know, but I can take that one notice too. It's a good question, but I don't know the answer.
And we don't expect you to be able to know everything. I think that today you have certainly shared a lot of information and insight into the direct-to-consumer space. So thank you so much, Georgia, and thanks to everybody who's attended. I think the Q&As are all finished up. So I'll just wrap the session up with just highlighting to everyone that the next WCA webinar is scheduled for Tuesday, the 8th of June, and the team at Wine Intelligence are going to be presenting on the latest global trends. We're just finalising details now, so keep an eye on the website for further details. For all WCA members, our recordings from previous webinars are available on our website in the members section. And of course, if you have any suggestions regarding webinar topics you'd like us to cover in this year's program, please don't hesitate to email me at wca@winecommunicators.com.au. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. And thanks again to you, Georgia. It's fantastic way to spend an hour.
Okay, great. Have a great week.